give me a copy of the recording, and you'll also send me the transcript. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get you all the resources so that you can do whatever you want with it.
Thank you so much. All right. So let's start now, Sylvain, okay?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right. Record.
Yeah, I am recording.
All right. So ask your first question, and I'll do my best.
So first is about the real estate business itself. So what kind of technologies are changing how real estate business actually works or operates these days?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I should say at the outset, Sylvain, that the real estate business is a very conservative business. It's a business that is reluctant to change.
Yeah.
And if the tech business was like the real estate business, what you would see is every time you went out, you left your home office and you got in your car and you had your cell phone, you know, your iPhone or your Samsung phone or whatever kind of phone you're using, your Android phone. Every time you got in your car, there would be 3 semi-trailers full of knobs and tubes and vacuum tubes behind you, following you everywhere you go to make this thing work. Okay, so that's what the tech business would look like today if it was like the real estate business. So I just want to make sure everybody's understanding. So what is the biggest change that's going on right now in the business? You might think you might be surprised by what it actually is, and I think what we're seeing people coming forward now with ideas. What is a smart building? And what is a smart building that makes economic sense? Because I've said it before, Sylvain, you've heard me say it, that nothing is sustainable unless it's also economically sustainable. So what's happening now with smart buildings is that you're doing some things in your buildings that are really simple and cost effective. For example, an all-off switch. Can't be any simpler than that. But every time you leave your building, you know, I have 5 kids, and you know, there's always lots and lots of stuff that's left on. So every time you leave your building, if there's one button you can push that turns everything off, obviously not your furnace and not your air conditioner, not your essential service, not your refrigerator, but everything else, that's a very smart and sensible thing to do. Some other things that people are doing, and you know this as well as I do, they're starting to do things like put in LED lights. You know, in this office that you can see behind me here, I've got 90 watts of light from LED pot lights that consume 7 watts of power. So we're talking about Ontario right now has a power rate of about 24.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And so if you could go from one technology, which is incandescent bulbs or halogen bulbs, to LED bulbs, and you could consume about 1/12 the amount of electricity, that's a big difference. So there's some very simple things that people are doing now with smart buildings: the all-off switch, the automatic door locks, the LED lighting, the smart temperature T-stats that you can control from your smartphone. And just making your building smarter. For example, there are lots and lots of commercial buildings now, Sylvain, that will take heat from places that are too hot and move that air to places where you need it, or places that are too cold, you know, vice versa. So there's lots of things that are happening in the technology sector that are affecting the real estate industry, and these are good things. Now, from my point of view as a realtor, you know, I'm part of what I do is I do some real estate investment coaching, I do some business coaching, but I'm also just a real estate broker. And a real estate broker, one of the most important things, it's not complicated, it's electronic signing of documents. Very important. You can get documents signed now, you know, because the real estate industry is becoming national and international. You have investors from Hong Kong, you have investors from the United States and from Germany, and if you can do electronic signing of documents. So there are things that are happening in the industry that are helping to make it a more efficient industry.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm going to throw a little curveball, and which is going to happen here and there. I've been talking to some people recently about artificial intelligence applied to smart buildings, smart houses, smart things.
Right.
And it falls into these kind of mechanisms that are about being efficient, essentially, with energy, for example. Have you seen anything kind of coming out? Like, is there a trend to actually apply this? And since you mentioned that it's very conservative, maybe the industry is a bit scared of that.
Well, I don't think so. Are you thinking that AI will replace realtors, for example? Is that what you're sort of getting at?
No, I'm talking about the operation. So, for example, the AI can know like normally a person when they leaves the house
Yeah,
wants all the lights
yeah,
off. So
yeah.
instead of the off switch, it does it on its own.
Absolutely. No, I think you're going to see AI will be it will come into this business, but it's the tech guys who will come into the real estate business. It's not the real estate guys who are going to bring the tech guys in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how about this maybe disruptive technologies that you see in real estate that that can change how it operates as well as how people buy and sell, the actual process of buying and selling. Are you seeing some trends there?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. What I said a couple of minutes ago, Sylvain, was that this electronic signing of documents is a huge, is having a big impact. You're able to now semi-automate and at some point pretty close to fully automated this whole process, buying and selling, viewing, showing, legal closings, financings. It's all going to become an electronic and at some point a seamless, network and channel that will make these transactions much more efficient. But there's something else I wanted to add, and I've had this debate quite often with people in my own industry, whether realtors or lawyers for that matter are deal makers or they're simply post office boxes. There's some lawyers who will say to you, Sylvain, I'm going to help you with your completion, whether you're buying a house or selling a house or you're buying an office building or a shopping plaza or you're renting it. But a lot of lawyers, or some anyway, will say to you, Sylvain, give me your instructions. Mm. And some realtors will say, Sylvain, what are your instructions? But I think that for lawyers and realtors and many other service professionals to become valuable or more valuable to their clients, and in fact to go one step further, and that is not to be disintermediated by AI, by artificially intelligent agents, they have to be more than just post office boxes and give me your instructions. They have to become your lifetime advisor, right? So they have to become your lifetime legal advisor, your lifetime real estate advisor, as opposed to somebody who just, like I said, asks for instructions. Now, in terms of simple ROI, simple return on investment, there's one thing that is new in the industry, which I think you'll enjoy. And I wrote it down before we started this interview, specifically to tell you, Sylvain, and that is that the single most profitable thing that we've introduced into the real estate industry, probably in 25 years, are what I call tech packages.
Oh.
And what is a tech package? It means every single tenant, whether it's a commercial tenant, a commercial office tenant, or a commercial retail tenant, or a residential tenancy, every single one of them, the moment they move into the physical office space, or the shop, or the apartment, or the condominium, they have a basic tech package, which is obviously internet, Wi-Fi, large screen TVs, Magic Jack phones, Netflix, Spotify. All of these things have to be available to tenants the day that they move in, because today it can take anywhere from a week to a month to get all these things working in your new house or your new apartment or your new shop, and that's too long. So landlords are providing these services, they're charging for these services, and it is the single most profitable part or new part of this business. So that's I'm seeing that everywhere.
Yeah, I get into that because, like you said, the interruption in any of those services is a pain.
Exactly. All right, keep going.
Cool. All right. So if we look into the future, like we usually do, you and I, 5-10 years from now, and knowing how the trends that we have currently, for example, online shopping, again, more and more prevalent, and AI even assisting in delivery now.
Just ask the question. I got the answer.
Yeah. So you, brother. I mean, all this stuff kind of going on that you know, like what are we looking at, like as far as buying and selling in residential, commercial, industrial for real estate? I mean, where are we heading here?
Yeah. So you asked me, this question number 3 was, what are the trends, right?
Yeah.
You got the questions in front of you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you asked me, what are the trends? This might surprise you. I think what you're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years, the biggest trend in real estate will be civil disobedience.
Okay, you have to elaborate.
I thought I'd stump you on that one, brother.
Civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience. I think I'm seeing it on a wide scale basis, and I know it's a kind of a surprise, but I'll just ask you a simple question. Did you know that most mortgages do not allow you to have a roommate? That if you rent a room in your house that you own, your principal residence, that you are in breach of your mortgage agreement.
If you rent like a house inside.
No, if you rent a room.
Yeah, if you rent a room. No, I did not know that.
Okay. So I had a young fellow, I do a lot of real estate coaching, and I had a young fellow buy his first ever home. And he was super excited. And 3 days before completion, Sylvain, I get a call from the underwriter. And the underwriter said, Mr. Firestone, your client is not buying this as a principal residence. Your client is buying this as a rental, and he is in breach of his mortgage agreement. I said, no, he's not. He's a young guy. It's his first home. He's got a great credit rating. His Beacon score, if you know what that is, his credit score was over 800, so terrific.
Yeah.
He's an engineer. He works for the government of Canada, so he's got a good income. I said, no, he's buying this 5-bedroom home. It's his principal residence. I don't know what you're talking about. She said, well, I Googled him. Mm-hmm. Well, you Googled him, so, and he's renting a room. And I said, well, yeah, he's going to have 1 or 2. I mean, he's a single guy. He's 25 or 26, maybe 27, and he's going to have a couple of roommates. It's a 5-bedroom house. He's not going to live there alone. And she said, well, that's in breach of his mortgage agreement. I said, you're kidding me. So she actually withdrew the mortgage, and he was late closing. So he had to replace it with another lender. So I asked my lawyer, a young lawyer I use a lot, Steve Shepard in Ottawa, and he said, no, I mean, a lot of these mortgages, you're not allowed to rent not a single square foot of your principal residence can be rented. I said, how many Canadians, and for that matter, Americans, might have a roommate? So if you were an old guy and living by yourself in a big house, you might be a little lonely. You might have a roommate. Some of my friends are in that circumstance. But so this is what I'm getting at. The fastest growing impoverished demographic in Canada and the United States are elderly people. And I can tell you that, because I'm 65 now, so I have a lot of people that I work with who are, they're going to rent rooms in breach of their mortgage covenants. They're going to have a workshop if they need to. They're going to have an office in their garage. They're going to have a parking in their front yard. They're going to have a coach house in their backyard. They're going to have a basement suite. People are just going to stop paying any attention to zoning and ordinances and bylaws. They're just going to stop, and they're going to say, look, if I don't, do you know what the average Canada pension plan payout was last year, Sylvain?
I don't know. I know it's not much.
It's not much. It was $550 a month.
Jeez, yeah.
So if you can live on $550 a month, you can ignore everything I'm saying. You don't have to. I mean, if you live on $550, you can hang up now. Okay.
That's too cheap.
So you haven't hung up. So I assume that's a yes. So what I'm saying to you is that I am seeing it all over. You're not supposed to have repair your friend's car in your garage because it's a breach of the zoning. But if you are hard up for cash, and especially if you're an elderly person and you need a roommate to make just to have enough money to go to the dentist because you got a toothache, you're going to do whatever you have to do. So civil disobedience is a huge trend. It's going to increase because we have zoning bylaws and zoning ordinances in Canada and the United States that are so overdone that it's impossible. Everybody's in breach of their zoning ordinances.
And why would it become more of a problem later? Is it because more people are impoverished?
Correct. So let's say, again, you're an old dude and you're living in your own home, and you're living on $550 a month, and you have a toothache, and you can't, you're going to have to drink a bottle of rye and get a friend with a pair of pliers,
yeah,
because you have no money to go to the dentist, right?
Yeah.
Alternatively, you have 4 extra bedrooms. You have a garage office, and you say, geez, I'm going to rent my garage office out for $800 a month, and I'm going to rent each of my rooms out for $550 a month. So I'm going to go from a Canada pension plan income of $550 a month to an income through real estate in my own darn house of maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Now that's not a lot of money, but that's a heck of a lot more money than $550.
Yeah, and since in your mind you own the house, not the bank, then you feel you're entitled to do exactly that.
But the zoning bylaws, the mortgage lending rules, and all kinds of other rules may prevent you. So it's called civil disobedience. So you don't want to end up in a fight with the police. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about things that do not in any way impact anybody else. So it's only your situation that is involved, and you're going to put up with having 2 or 3 roommates and having somebody use your garage office, to make wine or whatever they're doing.
Cool. Well, that's interesting.
So that was question number 3. What's question number 4?
Yeah. What role does automation and artificial intelligence play in your industry, if at all?
It is a big deal. I think no one really knows, but I think Steve Jobs, before he passed away, Sylvain, had a eureka moment, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. He had a moment because Steve loved simplicity. I have one of his iPhones here. This is, I think, an iPhone 6. And Steve would look at somebody watching TV, and they would have, like, you've seen it, you go to somebody's house and they got like, oh, wait, there's more, okay? And you go and they have like 17 controls, I'm exaggerating, but they have 3 or 4 or 5, and it's just a mess. It's a spaghetti mess. And I think what Steve wanted to do was he wanted to create, and Siri was a little bit of that, but it didn't seem to really take, but he wanted to create an interface between you, a person, an individual, an individual, and your home or your office or your shop that was quite different. All right. So I would be able to come home and say to my house, talk to my house and say, look, what's on TV tonight, or what's on Netflix tonight? Oh, look, there's a new, show. I watched with my daughters. I watched a show called The 100 on Netflix. Wow. And so my AI, when I come home, will say, oh yeah, hey, Prof Bruce, there's a new episode of The 100 is streaming from Netflix. Are you interested? Or they would say, hey, listen, there's a new a new album that's just been released on Spotify from your favorite artist. I don't know, Adele or something. Would you like to listen to it? Right. So I think Steve had in mind, a box that would, sort of automate a lot of the functions that we were talking about earlier. Like, oh shoot, I forgot to turn off all the unnecessary equipment in my house or in my office or in my shop. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that AI is definitely important because we found that, and you're much more of a tech guy than I am, but we found that tech doesn't really work unless it's easy to use. Absolutely.
Especially if you can use speech recognition and you can just talk to it, right? Easy to use.
Number 5.
Exactly. So what does the home of the future look like? You already talked about some aspects of it. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think there is. I think that the home of the future is going to be much, much smaller. Mm-hmm. And my wife has been saying this to me for a long time. She said, smaller, better, not bigger, worse.
Yep.
Right. And I think certainly the millennials, I teach a lot of millennials. I love that millennial generation. I think they're a great generation. They're not willing to put up with a lot of stuff that, frankly, your generation and my generation put up with. If they call for a taxi and they get somebody who doesn't really understand what they're saying and they say, look, I need a taxi tomorrow to take me to the airport, they have to be at 7 a.m. And if you're standing out on the curb at 7:30, you're going to miss your plane. So they wanted something better. That better, I guess, was Uber, right? And going back to what we were talking about earlier, people wanted to, maybe use their homes to boost their incomes if they're impoverished or about to be impoverished because they lost their job or they had ill health. And Airbnb came along. So this young generation, this millennial generation, are not willing to put up with crappy services and bad branding, right? They want good quality brands. So that applies to the home as well. So they would be much more interested in a home that is smaller, has more technology, has more capabilities than a home that's just, like in my generation, when I was in my 20s and 30s, all of my guy friends wanted these huge monster homes. Yeah. And I can tell you that young people, at least the ones I deal with on a day-to-day basis, don't want that.
Absolutely. And how about the builders? Are they adapting new technologies that offer these better homes, and even also talking about sustainability, right? That's also an aspect of quality nowadays.
I think the answer to that is unfortunately no.
That's unfortunate.
Well, you remember when we started, Sylvain, I told you that if the tech industry was like the real estate industry, we would go back to having I don't know if you remember the days when the cell phones were like this size.
Oh, yes.
Hi, Sylvain, can you hear me now? Right?
Uh-huh.
And what I'm saying is that the cell phones or the mobile phones would be this size, and you'd have the 3 semi-trailers. So in the case of the home builders, and not just the home builders, but the commercial builders as well and developers, they're extremely, extremely conservative. They'll tell you, Sylvain, we do things the way we do because that's the way we've always done it. We're always going to do it this way because that's the way it's done.
Yeah.
It's a circular argument, and they say, we're good. And so the young people who were not prepared to put up with poor taxi service and wanted Uber, and young people who were not prepared to put up with previous services and they want Airbnb, these young people want better products from the industry. Will the industry produce it? No. Right now, the answer is no. And I'll just give you a very simple example. A lot of the young people I coach, and not just people in their 20s, but even in their 30s and 40s, 50s, will want to buy a townhouse, okay? Those 2-story or 3-story townhouses in Toronto or Austin, Texas, or San Francisco or Vancouver or Ottawa. They want a townhouse. And they would like to have a basement apartment. If you can sort of see what my hands are doing here.
Yeah, I can.
They want a basement apartment with its own entrance where they can have, their mother-in-law, their grandmother, a tenant who's paying a bit of rent, live with them. They have their own, independent access, and it helps them pay their mortgage. And when they get old, one day even young people will get old. They'll have a little bit of financial support and income coming from that. So I went around and I talked to, I know a lot of builders. I don't know, maybe I talked to 20 of them or 25 of them, but I talked to a lot of them. I said, hey, guys, wouldn't this be cool if you could build brand new townhouses with, basement apartments, kind of like you would see in a brownstone in New York or Toronto or San Francisco, in those days, in the brownstone days, your gardener would live there, or your nanny would live there, or your maids would live there, whatever. But today, it could be an extended member of the family, and a member of an extended family, or it could be just a couple of kids going to university or college near you. And it provides an ability to help you pay your mortgage and later on give you some independent income. Every single one of the builders said, oh, no, we would never do that. And I would say, why? And they would say, well, it would mean we'd have to redesign what we do. How would we put in a second entrance? Well, I said they've been doing it in places like New York for about 150 years. In Toronto for probably about 150 years. So, we should be able to figure it out, or we just have to go to Toronto or New York, and that's not far away. Oh, no, but even if we could figure out how to design it, maybe the city of Ottawa would want 2 development charges. I don't know if you know the industry, but every time you build something, you have to pay a development charge. And maybe if you had 2 units, you'd have to pay 2 development charges. And that would cost us money, and we don't want to do that. So rather than think about what the customer wants, what the client wants, what the millennial wants, or for that matter, what an older person wants, they think really they're internalized. Our processes, our designs, we're not changing.
That's unfortunate again. But what about you, Bruce? Like if you were a builder, I know you're not. What kind of materials that are excited about that would actually be useful for sustainability, for economic sense, or to to provide to the client what they want?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sylvain. And I was a builder, and a developer in my earlier life. But at 65, that's a younger person's business. Trust me. There are probably 25 trades, maybe even 27 or 28 trades you need to engage to build a house. That's a lot of fussing around. And industrial buildings and office buildings and shopping plazas are a little simpler. There's probably maybe 15 trades. It's still, to me anyway, it's a younger person's business to do that. But there's no question there's been progress in the material side of things. I'll give you an example, a very simple example. Maybe I could, I don't know if I turn this, if you could sort of see this. Yeah, I think you can see it. Can you see that?
Well, I can see the door.
Yeah, what is that you're seeing there?
What's it, your garage door?
It is a garage door. And can you see that there's a man door as well? Or maybe, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I remember entering that.
All right, there you go. So here's me again. I think the door is better looking. Yeah. So that is a special order door, Sylvain, from Quebec. I think from Lachine, Quebec, or Laval, Quebec. I can't remember. But anyway, from Quebec. It's about a $3,500 garage door. And it's pretty cold outside today. I don't know what the temperature is, but -6 or -9, something like that. And here I am sitting in my garage office, literally a garage office, nice and toasty. And you can see there's a fireplace, a gas fireplace behind me that produces 14,000 BTUs, and it's not even on.
Mm-hmm.
So that insulated garage door still works as a garage door. So in the summer, I can pretend I'm in Hawaii and open it up, and I have an indoor-outdoor office. But the thing is that an insulated garage door like that with a man door in it and lights, windows, right, makes that garage space very usable, highly effective space. And what it does is it reduces the amount of heat that is required, and cooling, that you require in a building like this. Excuse me.
Okay.
In a building like this. So it's a $3,500 investment, which is not a small investment, because you could buy a garage door that's uninsulated with no man door in it for probably for $800, right?
Yeah.
But the extra $2,000 that you're spending, or a little bit more than that you're spending, you can save in some of the buildings that we do. You can save $300 a month in heating and cooling costs. Think about that, because that is a huge, huge vector for just cold air coming into your building and warm air and leaving it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes more of your space usable. It changes the economics of your building, in this case, a home, a residence. So there's all kinds of stuff like this that you can find out there if you're, really on top of things. Another thing that we have found is, for example, we're doing basements now with epoxy resin floors. I don't know if you know what epoxy resin floors are, but they can be a very beautiful surface. It's like a poor man's terrazzo tile. Remember the terrazzo from your days in public school, maybe high school as well? So you could do basement floors that will last 20 plus years, that are almost invulnerable to, that you can have a flood, you could spill, you can break things on it, but you can make all kinds of investments in new materials that will really help you make your building a much more maintenance-free building, and also lower your monthly costs.
Yeah, cool. All right, so and this is a little bit of a free question here to kind of explain about your thoughts. What do you think about at-home energy generation technologies, at-home 3D printing, into the future, drone delivery service, and all these other technologies we see? What do you think about all this stuff coming into our homes here?
Absolutely. Well, I have this theory that at some point, probably in your lifetime, Sylvain, certainly in the lifetime of your children, somebody's going to come up with a big truck, and they're going to drive over to your office building or your shopping plaza or your house, and or your school. They're just going to use like a big fire hose and go and just spray this stuff on your building, on your walls, on your roof, etc. And it's going to be lots and lots of little nanomites or something like that will form a power generation network. I mean, the days of paying some huge nuclear power plant or coal-fired plant or even gas-fired plant unreasonable amounts of money for your power, that's going to end. And
Mm.
the millennial generation are not going to put up with that either. And so at some point, every wall, every surface, everything will produce, I think, solar power. And I'm looking forward to that day. Did you know that it's actually illegal in most jurisdictions to unhook from the power grid?
Yes, I didn't know that.
I have any number of young people who come to me. We're building a house, and we're going to get some storage capacity, and we're gonna do the solar thing, and we're done with in Ontario OPG, Ontario Power Generator. Do you know that Hydro-Quebec can produce power, Sylvain, in Quebec for between 5.5 and 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour? New York State is around 14 cents per kilowatt hour. Michigan's around 10 or 12 cents. Ontario's 24.5 cents. So Ontario used to have one of the best power generating systems in the world, very cost effective. And today it's just completely out of control. We're not as bad as the Australians are. The Australians are around 32 or 33 or 34 cents a kilowatt hour, but Ontario is certainly heading in that direction. So lots and lots of people in this province want to, unplug. It's illegal to do that. So that is a problem. The other thing that I think is going to be a big factor, or could be anyway, is solar hot water. And you might say, oh my gosh, you can't do solar hot water in a cold northern shelf province like Ontario, but you can. It's one of the things that has a big time ROI, and it's very simple, right? You have a bunch of tubes with water in it, painted black inside, a glazed surface, and you, even on the coldest days, you're probably going to get satisfactory hot water from it. Very inexpensive to do. Do you know something else? That's illegal too.
What?
Yep.
How is that illegal?
It is. I mean, glad you asked. Remember we talked about civil disobedience. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. People go, what are you talking about, Prof Bruce? Well, actually, I see it all the time. Two reasons. One, the city of Ottawa has a bylaw against it. And two, your insurance companies won't insure it.
Okay.
They're worried that if you put a solar hot water collector on your roof and somehow it freezes or it breaks, you get water in your building and it'll damage your building. But that is absolutely nonsense, Sylvain. We can certainly run, pipes safely. We know how to do that, whether it's on your roof or on your wall. So solar hot water makes a whole lot of economic sense, a whole lot of, environmental sense. But there are all kinds of reasons why you can't do it. One, it's against the bylaw, and two, your insurance company, if they find out you're doing it, will yank your insurance. So again, it's going to be, I think people will just simply disobey, the law. The other thing that I'm expecting is at some point every house will have a cat door.
Okay.
Only it won't be your cat or your dog going in and out of that door. It'll be a drone.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really cool. Thanks. And so last question is a general question again. What message do you want to give to young professionals and entrepreneurs about the opportunities they should be looking for in the next few years? Where should they dig their fingers into?
Well, I can't remember which actor it was who said, you shouldn't wait to buy real estate. You should buy real estate and wait. And that's a well-known quote. I can't remember who said it right now, but Sylvain, look, I've tried other things. I've been a hockey guy. I was involved with the Ottawa Senators back in the day. I have a pension plan that doesn't perform very well. I've tried mutual funds and tax-free savings accounts. People talk about investing in gold, and gold hasn't done much in the last decade or so. So for a guy like me, and this is a bit self-serving because I am a real estate broker and I'm a real estate investment coach, so I get it can be a little bit self-serving, but I haven't found anything that compares to real estate. And I did a little bit of research, I guess probably 3 years ago now, and I looked at the 100 richest families in Canada. And 61 out of the 100 richest families in Canada had all or substantially all of their wealth invested in real estate. Mm-hmm. And if it's good enough for 61 out of 100 richest families in Canada, it's probably good enough for you and me.
Yeah. Well, I have one comment on that. And again, I I don't know the real estate business. If I want to learn about it, I'm going to contact you.
Yeah, touchdown.
Definitely, and I will actually.
There you go. You should, Sylvain. I'm a real estate coach, and I'm not expensive.
Yeah, and but I would. Jesus Christ. And the one reason for it is in the constant change that we're going to be seeing in the next few years, especially because of technology, AI, all this stuff.
Yeah.
One thing will remain: you still need to live somewhere.
There you go.
It's all about value, right?
If you look at, say, the Duke of Winchester, right? I think we're on the 7th Duke of Winchester. The 6th Duke died last year, August of 2016. And he had an income, a personal income through real estate of $128 million US a year.
Jeez.
So he was doing a little bit better than the average Canada pension plan guy.
Yeah.
Who was making $550, and he had to make do with $128 million a year. It was $14,400 US an hour. So that was his income through real estate. And his family has been building that portfolio since 1740.
Wow.
And he's been passing it on successfully and carefully, generation to generation. So, I'm not saying that there aren't other investments, that people can make. I understand that. Just at least in my case, I haven't found anything that outperforms real estate. And real estate is a kind of a business model for dummies, right? If you're running Facebook, that's a pretty friggin' complicated business to run. All right. And or if you're running the Disney company, that's again, there's a lot of facets to running Disney. I mean, that's not easy to do. But if you or I had 5 or 6 residential rentals, a couple of homes that we were renting to nice folks, and we had to collect the rent once a month, and we had to fix a toilet once in a while. I mean, it's not that complicated, and most of us can probably figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Bruce. Oh, actually, one little detail before we end. I'd like to know, how do you want me to identify you and your quotes, like specifically? Do you know? Sure.
My nickname is Prof Bruce.
Yeah.
Okay, and my full name is Bruce M. Firestone. M is in Murray.
Yeah. So
Bruce M. Firestone, PhD.
Yeah.
You know what PhD stands for?
Actually, I don't know.
Piled higher and deeper. No, it's a.
That's funny, but
it's PhD, Doctor of Philosophy. Okay, so Bruce M. Firestone, PhD.
Okay, that makes more sense. Like, what the?
I'll hire you, but it was a joke. Maybe not a good one. The only joke
I thought it was funny.
Oh, wait a second, I do have another joke. Okay, how does a snow girl break up with her snowman boyfriend?
Give him the cold shoulder.
Touchdown for Sylvain.
Woo!
Gives him the cold shoulder. Okay, so Bruce M. Firestone, PhD.
Yeah.
Ottawa Senators founder.
Yeah.
Century 21.
Yeah.
Explorer Realty broker.
Wait. What?
Century 21. Explorer Realty.
Mm-hmm.
Broker.
Okay. I'm putting in commas between the.
Yes, you should.
Just,
I assumed you would know what a comma is.
Yeah. Anything else?
And, the last one is real estate investment and business coach.
Okay.
That's enough. And you can find me on Twitter at Prof Bruce.
Yeah.
And you can always email me anytime, bruce.firestone.
All right. No, I know you.
At century21.ca.
I'll be fine.
Sylvain, I've really enjoyed doing this. I hope it's helpful.
No, it has been helpful. I'm touching all sorts of bases. So, and when it comes to homes and real estate, I thought no one better.
Well, I really appreciate you including me. I have tremendous respect for you, and I'm fond of you. And if I can help in any way in the future, you let me know. And I do want both a video of this, if we can, and a transcript. And I'll certainly promote this, which we've done together, and your book when it comes out.
Yeah, and I'll provide you all that information about in 48 hours when the transcript comes in. So I'll send you all at the same time.
Perfect.
And that'll be good.
And I'll definitely promote both yourself and